Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back. This is Construct Your Life. I'm talking to the most demanded speaker in all the United States. I mean, he's so white hot right now, guys. He's getting phone calls left and right. My man, Christian, how are you, bud? Left and right, dude. Yeah, I gotta get a secretary for you. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, somebody please, yeah.
So. It's weird, right? I interviewed Parker Cox earlier today. And you have conversations on the phone, you have conversations in DMs, you get bits and pieces of your story, right? So if I had to say like who you are as a person, I'm like, well, I know you worked in the military, I know you were in the military, and I know you like EOS, and you're pretty nice. You're a nice guy. That's about as far as I got, on the depth, right? So it's nice to get you on here to kind of tell your story. So what I like to do is let my guests kind of go where they want to, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Do you want me to start? I can give it back.
Yeah. Technically, that's how it goes. It's like the host asks a question, and then the guest comes back and answers the question. But hey, I'm down with whatever you want.
Just staying in my circle. Let's see. I grew up in Connecticut, a nice upper middle class family. When I was 17, my dad was silently struggling with depression and heart issues, and he passed away. So that was pretty much, right from that age, I had to become pretty independent, and I needed a way to pay for college. And I have a great family, aunts and uncles that wanted to pay for it, and I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so somehow I found the ROTC building, the Army ROTC building, and decided to give it a shot. And then I ended up joining the military. And I went to University of Vermont, which is pretty liberal school. And so the ROTC program there was definitely different. And I think what that taught me was you don't have to be some like hardcore, very ultra right, conservative, really strict guy to be in the military. And so then when I finally got into the military, like started doing things, I realized that I was more keen on operating with certain liberties. And I spent the first 4 years, I was a Black Hawk pilot, so I went to flight school, went to Germany, lived in Germany for 3 years. That was unbelievable to be 22, 23, 24, living in Germany, single, traveling all the time. And that was fun. And I realized I needed to do something a little bit more demanding with my life, and something more challenging, and something that I honestly didn't really believe that I could do, nor did the people around me think I could do. And so I tried out for the 160th, and the 160th they're known as the Night Stalkers. They are the highest tier helicopter asset in the military, and the unit within it that I was in serves exclusively to tier 1 units. They're most famed for doing raids and attacks on Black Hawk Down. That's 160th. We went after a certain high-profile terrorist years ago in Pakistan, that type of thing. And so I decided to go there. I got in, and I spent the last 6 years of my career constantly deployed, flying a version of the Black Hawk. You know what the Black Hawk helicopter is?
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
You know what the Apache is?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we had a Frankenstein version where it was both of those combined. So we took all of the weapons from an Apache and put them on a Black Hawk. There's only 10 of them in the world. And what that allowed us to do was carry more weapons, more ammo, more fuel, go longer ranges, aerial refuel, collapse the birds, put them in the back of C-17s and fly them to the middle of nowhere at any time, any place, and just fly in the worst possible environments and conditions that you can possibly imagine that frankly no one else will fly in. And so I did that for 6 years, and was fortunate enough to spend the entire time flying and leading. And so by the end of it, I had a team of 70 dudes and 12 aircraft, and we were doing operations on 4 continents at any given time, and having a blast.
You said something in there that's really interesting, because my uncle was a Navy SEAL, and he doesn't talk much about that. You said, I did something that frankly I didn't think I could do, and the people around me didn't think I could do it either. Right? We're not talking about, and I'm not putting down anybody. We're not talking about some Mickey Mouse group of people. We're talking about, the elite of the elite, right? That are operating in kind of, to be honest with you, the shadows, but more importantly, like the elite level of mindset and kind of health, right? Like you have to be in to make it through. The first question is, why the hell did you think you could even do it? And then did you ever have any moments in the midst of, applying for it or training for it where you were like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I even doing this?
Well, it'd be easy to say, like, I know I didn't believe I could do it, but I knew somewhere in me that I could, and I wasn't going to not try. And I feel like everything that I've done has been, and maybe this is unhealthy, but it's somewhat out of addiction. I grew up, when I was a chubby kid, I got made fun of a lot. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL growing up, and kids in my school told me the only thing I could be was a Navy walrus.
Wow.
And so I definitely had I had something to prove, chip in my shoulder, and that's pretty much that chip in my shoulder has gotten me pretty much everywhere that I've gone. But while I was applying, while I was in the training, and then while I was in the unit, like in the unit, every day is a tryout. Every day for the rest of your life is a tryout. And yeah, pretty much every day I was kind of like, what in the fuck am I doing? And how did I get here? But then something clicked for me. And it was not so much that I had anything special about me or anything uncommon about me or any sort of edge. It was that I had found myself in a room surrounded by the best helicopter pilots in the world, and that if I put all of my energy and attention to making them better, they were going to do the same for me.
Yes, this reminds me of a thing where, way different but the same. There was a 15-minute meeting in my life that I flew across country for to meet one of my first mentors. Like, he literally had 15 minutes, and he said to me, he's like, look, you can idolize me all you want, but I am no different than you. I just got started before you with better people around me. So the moment that you take everybody else along off the pedestal is the moment that you'll set yourself free. And you see guys like in your unit, I'm sure you're like, man, that guy's like super gifted. He can run fast. He can jump. He can everything, but hard work, consistency, and consistency of a consistency of habits. I was saying, you can look at that guy and say, oh, he's the healthiest, he runs the fastest, he's the sharpest, he's the smartest, he's all these things. But like, there is something to be said to just have that internal belief day in, day out, showing up. Like, I tell myself all the time, this is the truth. I, as CEO, have to earn the right to be CEO every day. I have to earn the right to be a business partner every day. And I have to earn the right to be in this leadership role every day. It's never for granted.
never, never. And yeah, I mean, that's spot on. And where I've seen, so in the 6 years that I was in the 160th, I had many other people of my, like, officers, captain types, come and go. And I mean, this isn't to like boost my ego or anything, but I stayed in that position longer than anyone else in the history of the 160th. And the ones that didn't last a year were the ones that showed up and thought about themselves, because they were finally in the 160th and they finally get to go fly these cool airframes, and they're going to focus on their career and doing all these things. And we fired them.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that stayed were the ones that showed up for the guys, not for themselves. Every day.
It was Jocko's book that kind of helped me get sober, Extreme Ownership. But it was a story in there when he talks about how they're at Buds and the number one team wins over and over again, and then he takes the number one guy off and puts him on the worst team, and they win. And I'm like, oh, it's leadership. Like it's leadership, right? And I think that's something that you and I have in common, because I understood. I'm doing it on purpose. I understood the assignment walking into small business. Mm-hmm. Was these businesses at its core rise and fall on one thing and one thing only: leadership.
Yeah.
If you as an owner or CEO put more money in your pocket, and that's what you care about more than your team, then what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And it's very easy to see. And now that all I do is work with leaders and their teams, it's very easy to see the ones that care and the ones that, frankly, don't.
And here's the worst part. Here's the worst part. It hurts to care.
Yeah.
Okay. And I say that to say that I just had a guy that I invested a lot of time on quit and call me a piece of shit and a snake and everything. Yet I gave him everything he asked for. He's just a toxic person. And I could take that super personally, and I would be lying if I say I'm not a little charged up right now.
Yeah.
But I'll move past it.
Yeah.
Because I know that his anger towards me has only thing to do with himself.
Yep.
Because I know what I show up every day and do. I know the sacrifices that I've taken to move my family across the country, to come to a town I didn't know, to invest my millions of dollars in a business. And you think I'm worried about your little fucking bullshit? Like, right? Yeah. Like, I think people, they don't look at it from the proper lens, right? And so I say all that to transition to something that you love doing, which, if I'm being honest, EOS is like watching paint dry on a fucking wall. Yeah. It's the boringest thing on the planet.
It is.
But the mechanics of it make all the sense in the world.
Yes. And just so it's clear for the audience, I'm not a certified EOS guide, and I went through their process and decided to take the pieces from it that make sense and to take the pieces from other things that make sense. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach to it. And I'm lucky to have some mentors that were EOS guides, left and did the same for that exact reason. Okay. But
I love it. It is the boringest shit in the world, dude. There's no worse meeting than an EOS meeting, dude.
Right. That's why I don't do
it. Because I think one of the gifts that we can have as people is that we can know ourselves enough to take what we need and leave the rest. So This is something I say all the time, right? You don't know a ton about me, but you know enough. Like, I've had some effed up shit happen, right? And like, I've done some weird shit, and I got in trouble, and alcohol addiction and all that stuff, and divorce. But there is a joy and a freedom in that, because when you blow up your entire life, you get to leave behind what you don't want anymore. You're not dragging it around for years, right? So I can look at a book. By the way, guys, we're talking about Traction, entrepreneur system, right? Which is a lot of companies built on. What aspects of EOS do you like that you saw value in that you kept?
Yeah. So I got introduced to it because Jocko had an arm of his business. It's now somebody else that takes special operators and puts them in businesses and headhunting. And my first job was running urgent cares in COVID. And the CEO, a week before I started, gave me the book and said, I want you to read this because you're going to implement it on day one. And I read it and it's like, oh, cool. This is everything I did in the military, just with different words. And so we went through the black and white, you do all these things. But after 8 months, it became very apparent that that's not my style. The things that I still use to this day from it with teams, and I think are really tie from what I did before and what I do now, is intent, cadence, and accountability. And intent being, some people call it the vision, some people call it mission, some people call it purpose. It's really like, what are we trying to accomplish and why are we trying to accomplish? The cadence is the meetings. I think so much time is wasted in meetings, just talking or talking about the wrong things and doing everything but talking about the things that actually matter. That you can take $100 million organization and get rid of 75% of their meeting time if you just do it right. And then the accountability part. Everybody likes to talk about having accountability for ourselves, accountability for each other. Well, it's hard to have any sort of scope of accountability if you don't already have an intent and a way to measure it. And you go through that by the intent and the cadence, because otherwise everybody's just running off in their own directions, thinking they're accountable for, X, when really they should all be accountable for Y.
Josh Schultz or Schmaltz or whatever, how you say his last name, operator, he was saying that he thinks that the large majority of the reason why people fail at their job is because they don't actually know what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw that too. Yeah. They don't know the outcome.
It's the truth, right? Like we don't, what I've been having luck with, right, is, so I came from high-end, sold wine for 20 years, hospitality. Like I'm talking about top 1% of 1% restaurants and hotels in the country. So I've waited on, that's kind of, to be honest with you, where I got the business bug, was meeting on all these people. And I'm like, how are you off on Tuesday at 11 o'clock? Well, I own a couple businesses. And then, I'm asking questions. Most of those restaurants refused to hire people that had 15 to 20 years experience. Well, what? So you telling me that experience, knowing why would you do that? Well, there's too many bad habits. There's too much ego. There's all this stuff. And so I've been having a ton of luck hiring before they're ready and getting them indoctrinated into the accountability culture, the standards that we set, and saying, look, I can teach you all these things. I know that you feel nervous, but I don't expect you to be right for this role for 2 or 3 years. And because I do that, they go, well, wow, this guy's really invested in me. I'm going to invest in myself. And then boom, here we are. They're flourishing, right? Because aptitude, accountability, showing up, drive, like these are the things that we don't talk about. Well, you got all this experience and all this stuff. And I'm like, my joke is like, my mentor used to say to me, like, yeah, you might have 20 years of experience, but you have 1 year of experience doing it 20 years in a row.
Side note, have you been to Blackberry Farm? Heard of Blackberry Farm?
I've heard of it. It's in
big wine collection. Very big wine collection.
Right? Franklin,
what's that?
Tennessee? Franklin, Tennessee?
It's over just south of Knoxville.
Okay. Yes, I've heard of it. Yes, from a
big wine collection. They have the wine cellars that run underneath the property in between the buildings.
Amazing. I went to a winery in Napa, 60 acres. They bought it. Bill Murray. They were literally going toe to toe with Bill Murray to buy it. They bought it. He invented a heart stint. His wife was richer than he was. That's just crazy stuff. And they found this underground cellar that hosted parties for years through the 30s and 40s. But they found this extra door, and they unlocked it, and there was art and desk from all the presidencies.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, cool.
So,
That's
I fall in love with that kind of, like, people think I don't even drink anymore. And people think like I love to sell wine. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm still romantic about it. I've traveled to France and like I still can sell it all day long. But what I fell in love with was the winemakers,
yeah.
because the winemakers at their core were just farmers. They get labeled as winemakers, but really they're just farmers.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what I think, and to tie it all back together, I think what EOS does is it identifies, it highlights, and it eradicates issues, labels and issues and things that we're not focused on,
Yeah.
right? And so as I can use it as a base, my biggest issue with EOS is that it's not front facing enough. It doesn't handle anything with the customers, with the marketing. That's my biggest issue, is that's why you kind of got to bolt on a couple different things.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think that's where it falls short. And that's why
where did you get your other like the other kind of thing that where'd you get that from?
8 months into running the urgent cares, we were at a point where it didn't make sense for me to implement it anymore. I was running the business and also trying to run the meetings, all that stuff. And it's hard to be objective, subjective, and participate all at the same time. And so we reached out to a buddy of mine, has a big barbecue business. They were using this guy. His name's Mike Powers. And he uses a method called Pinnacle, which is really just all the EOS guides that left and did their own thing kind of banded together. And so he got us in a room and we went through a day with him, and I was just sitting there. I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And he's leading the discussion with us. And I just remember sitting there because I'm participating. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was, he didn't bring out one thing from that book, from Traction. He brought out his own tools, everything that all these other guides kind of compiled together. And that was the moment where I was like, this is what I need to do. This is what I want to be doing. And yeah, that was my introduction to the different techniques.
What about it made it possible for you to see that this is something that you wanted to do?
He was going through an exercise and I offered a technique to the exercise, and he's like, wow, that's really good. I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Well,
there it is. There it is. So here's what it is. It was acceptance of outside ideas, not it being the holy grail, right? I think business, is an organism, right? And I think that the interesting thing about business is there's 4 different things going on in the same conversation.
Yeah.
There's what you and I want to get accomplished. There's what needs to get accomplished, and then there's what the owners want to get accomplished, and then there's what the investors want to get accomplished.
Yeah.
And the thing is that everything along that line has different needs for where they are in their life. What a weird. So now you've got a line of 10 people, right? If you want to break it out, I'll use HVAC as a thing. I got my service tech, his manager, the project manager, his boss, the COO, myself, the owners, the investors. So now we got 8 people in a line. And how do we put them in one size fits all? We don't.
No. Yeah. And
so really, if I'm saying that, then leadership is a moving target.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%. So is teaching. Coaching is like, it's all like, I don't have one client right now that learns or is coached the same way. And
I call it the wood chipper. So a lot of people put people through the wood chipper. This is my framework. You figure it out, and then we'll kind of see if we don't give you what you really need. Like, the thing is like you're changing the same time you're coaching people. So you're gaining skills, you're moving. Right. And so, I mean, that's why it's so hard, right? Like, it's so hard to hire me Because if I'm selling you that you're going to be happier, you're like, dude, go fuck yourself. I don't want to be happy. I want money. I want goals. I want to be thinner, it's like, but what you're telling them is say, look, I've been in the fight. Okay. And even though we're not in battle in a helicopter, like this is a fight, right? Because you have all these families that rely on you. And that's what I would imagine a lot of the stress for your clients come from, is that the pressure of the responsibility.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And so when you're dealing with them and you're unlocking them and you're fixing, is there overriding things that they're doing or habits or mindsets that they're doing, like one or two that seem to run through all your clients that you kind of, what are those?
Setting the intent.
Okay.
10 times out of 10, I'm working with a client, whether it's discovered on the first day or discovered on like the third session with the whole executive team, is that everybody's operating off of a different idea of what the CEO wants for the business. It usually starts with, hey, I'm the CEO and this is what I want to build. Well, your people don't listen to that. They listen to what's relevant to them. And so you speak what you want to build in a way that everyone from, the VP of marketing to the 20-year-old kid that just was hired to work the call center, everybody needs to understand it. And I'll say, 100% of the time, the first thing that we hit is intent and communicating that to your team. And that is a huge unlock. And I didn't honestly, it was like imposter syndrome for me leading up to some of the first clients that I got on my own. Like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not a business coach. I've only run businesses for 2 years. How could I be? But the greatest thing that I took away from the special operations environment and applied to the business world is solidifying that intent. Because without it, everybody's just running in different directions.
Because ultimately you as a coach want to see your clients and businesses be successful. So if I carry that as my firm pillar, then I can't be wrong no matter what I do.
Yeah. I mean, of course I want them
to succeed. No, but it just cracks me up because I wonder if you run into this, like you're having a conversation, let's call it a CEO, a COO, and a CMO. Well, I'll just use that for context, right? It's three major, and you look in there and you're sitting in the conversation and they're going back and forth and they're saying, whatever. And you're looking at them and you're going, guys, our intent is that we all want the same thing. Y'all just don't realize that.
Yep.
Like, do we not want the customer to be successful? Do we not want to make more money? Do we not want to be healthier? Do we not want to spend more time with our kids? What are we talking about here, guys?
Yeah.
Like, and you kind of like come to that realization and you go, oh shit, okay. Because this is what I believe. It's so funny that you brought this up. I've never had anybody do this in fucking almost 600 episodes. I believe that intent is everything. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let me go real scenario for you. I have clients that I help get sober that have done some fucked up shit. Let's just call it what it is. Some that are on their third divorce, some that have been an alcoholic for 30 years, and we'll get like 4 weeks in, and I'm like, dude, you're crushing it. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? My life is still in shambles. I go, is your intent that you want to be a better person, that you want to be great? Yes. Okay. That's all we need. That's the seed of everything. How fast you get there, that's two totally different things. But when you switch their intent and they're not self-sabotaging, they're not hurting themselves anymore, that's when you can really grow. My coach said it to me perfectly. You're over here bitching and moaning about how far you've come in a year. You were a fucking functioning alcoholic for 20 years. So you're going to fix your entire life in 1 year? Come on, dude. He's like, that doesn't even make sense, right? And we're so hard on ourselves, right? And these businesses, they all want the same thing. And sometimes the intent can be so good, but yet they could still fail. Right. And that's for, many different reasons. So as you go ahead.
And where I see them, like the intent is there, everybody's agreed on it. but then oftentimes the failure is because there's the missing piece of accountability.
And how do you view, so typically what's a typical size of a company that you're brought into? Like how many employees?
I have them all across the board, man. I mean, so I do executive coaching too,
Mm-hmm.
which I would say is probably my favorite. And I have companies that are 2 people, and I have companies that are 100 people. Anywhere
So when
revenue
you're
size from 3 million a year to 100 million a year.
So when you're in a company that has 100 plus employees and you are brought in to coach the company or an executive, do you ask the people who are underneath them feedback about your client?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that go?
It goes well. And I'd lead with, there's a general understanding. There is an understanding. There's a firm understanding amongst the executive team. Like I have one client right now where I work with the CEO and I work with the time exec team. They're a huge company, and they are blowing up, and they are, running as fast as they can just to keep up. And all the vice presidents know that I need the feedback because there's missing links, and so that I can make those connections, it's going to help them do their job better and help the more senior executives understand what's going on. Does that answer your question?
1000%, because I really hate to call myself out because I am a work in progress at all times. I feel great about how far I've came, but I will say that I'm, sometimes if I'm not in the right headspace, feedback, especially in my new role as CEO of a large company, most employees I've ever had, I'm learning on the job. There's aspects of it I'm not great at. There's aspects I'm really good at. So I get nervous about feedback, but me and my CEO are real honest. But what I've been doing to circumvent that is I've been grading myself. So I'll come in and say, these are the areas I need to work in. This is what I'm going to focus in the next 6 months. I promise you this, I'll do that. And I'll send that to the other owners. And they're like, whoa, like, wow, he's like literally reporting on himself. And I know I'm doing that for a reason because I want to see it first. But what I'm secretly doing is cutting off their negative feedback at the head. Because if you address it as a person, then there's no need to shovel shit on that person already, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also understanding that when we get to 30, 40 million a year in revenue, that ain't me. And everybody knows it. I ain't your guy that's going to take you from 40 to 100. I'm your guy that could acquire businesses on the outside to get you to that ways, but I'm not your guy who's going to punch the clock every day and just do that thing. And so when you're coaching those executive teams like that CEO who's running, does he ever have that moment of clarity where he realizes that, down the road, he might not be the person to take it to the promised land? Okay.
Yep.
Is that powerful when they come to that realization and they kind of set themselves free?
Yeah. Or I mean, like, it's also powerful when they realize they're doing the wrong things right now. That's even, I had a call with one and he's like, shit, I'm doing all the wrong things right now. I really need to focus on this. And I'm like, so does your team.
my last 2 weeks. So I was doing something that I realized that was for my creativeness, but it wasn't a high margin, high output project for the company. But I saw a need for it in the community, but the numbers didn't back it up. And so I had to kill it. And I had to be the one to kill it because it was me that brought it to the table in the first place. Now that talk about some pride. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what good leaders do, man. They realize it. And it's I had another client. We stopped working together just because he couldn't afford it anymore with the way the business is going, but we still check in every other month or so, just because this ends up happening. We become friends. And he calls me the other day and he's like, look, I finally just got rid of it. And he was describing this bright, shiny object project that he'd just been shoveling money into. And he finally got rid of it, back to making the main thing the main thing. And he's like, I just feel like a new person again. And I was like, main thing the main thing. And a lot of times your people need that too.
So true. So you've been talking a lot about intent. All right. Mm-hmm. What's your intent for your life personally?
Yeah, it's a good question. Personally, right now, I want to get back to working with people that I enjoy working with, that fuel me. I spent a long time pretending that I was really good at running other people's businesses for them and building something that I thought was honestly cool to other people. And so now my intent, like for the next year, I'm going to build a coaching firm with other former special operators that have also run businesses. And I'm going to get them back into doing the thing that they love doing, which is coaching and developing other people.
Amazing.
That's it.
And because technically what you're doing is you're becoming the coach of the coaches.
Yeah.
Which is my dream role. Yeah.
Sort of. I mean, so I've got one guy so far, former Navy SEAL. He was a SEAL for 22 years. Mm-hmm. Probably a better coach than I am. He's an inspirational dude. He's probably a better person than I. And I want to get back to surrounding myself with people that are better than me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other guys that I have lined up as the clients come available, I mean, these are dudes that were on SEAL Team 6 for 20 years. Mm-hmm. These are former, Delta operators, guys that flew 160th aircraft for 20 years and have silver stars and distinguished flying crosses, and like surrounding myself with those people again and giving them a way to take the knowledge of leadership and development that they've learned over 20 years and give them an opportunity to speak that and coach that. Yeah. I reflect a lot about there's a huge stigma about sharing, especially at the level that I was at. And for some reason, it's good because it protects what is continuously safeguarding our country. But in other reasons, it's flawed because we fought 2 wars for over 20 years. And now you have all these guys who are at the tip of the spear who just go on with their life quietly. When do people get to glean off the lessons they learned from leading teams at the most elite levels? And unless you read a book, they don't. And my intent is just to get a couple of those guys out there doing this, and kind of uncovering some of those quiet truths.
I would say that 70% of my current company is ex-military. Cool. Just so happens with the area that I'm in.
Yeah.
That, this is what they went and did. Maybe 60, but I enjoy them because there's internal drive that's not needed from me. There's a level of discipline that's not needed from me. There's 2 people I love hiring. It's ex-addicts and military people. Like, they're amazing because they're so blessed to, and more importantly, they want to, perfect example, ex-military, probably one of the most important employees I have. He said, I want to be sales manager in about 10 years. That's what he told me. Okay. This is, by the way, my number one producer, project manager, does $1 million commercial projects, says he wants to be sales manager in 10 years. I said, yeah, that's cute. I said, how about today? And so I just made it to him today. And I go, well, you got to change your goals, buddy. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it cracks me up, right? Because he saw this long chasm of who he had to become. I'm going to reward you ahead of time, and then you're going to grow into that person forever. And I said, it's not, you're going to be the sales manager of just this company. I said, you're going to be the sales manager of all the companies that we buy. And he's like, oh shit, but now we've given a carrot for him to go to, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that intrigues me the most, athletes and military guys, the chasm between I'm in duty and I have a mission and I have a purpose and I have an intent. And then one day you wake up and it's all gone. And then you have to reclassify your entire identity in life and everything.
Yep. And I will be the first to admit that I really struggle with that.
How long do you think it took you to really get your feet back underneath you?
So 2 weeks ago. Three, maybe. Yeah, look, I mean, I got out and I thought the thing you had to do is go run other people's businesses and be an employee. And so I did that, and I did some coaching on the side. I always did coaching on the side. And then my last job, it was a great job, a lot of autonomy. It became uncovered to them that I was doing other things too and didn't really fit their drive, their intent, and also mine. So they let me go. And I think it's the greatest thing anyone's ever done for me was fire me. And so I last 3-4 weeks ago, I just went head in, all in on it. I mean, I'm still figuring out, but I finally, in 3 weeks, we've brought in a number of clients that, I'm not quite, there's still more to build. There's a lot more to build, but, I finally feel like I have the freedom to really, pursue what my purpose is.
What did you learn about yourself in the last 3 weeks that you didn't know beforehand?
Good question. I think two things. One is I relearned my drive, and that 5% of what I did was flying helicopters. 95% of what I did was coaching and leading my team.
Okay.
Running all the operations. I love that.
I love it. And what are you currently doing right now that you need to stop doing?
I need to stop thinking so low of myself. And I think a lot of that is because I went from here to there, and I've been there for 2.5 years now. And I know you will appreciate this probably more than anyone, but I have severe depression.
Yeah.
And I need to stop pretending that doesn't exist, and then I can just fight through it. So
Jim Carrey said, he said a quote, he said, depression is nothing more than your body and your soul telling you, I don't want to fucking be this person anymore. Meaning this version of myself, right? And I think it's such a poignant thing, right? I wouldn't say, somebody asked me the other day, I've coached a lot of people, what is most of what people generate, right? And they say I'm a people pleaser, like all these things, right? And I go, that's conscious level surface bullshit. And they're like, what do you mean? That's the reason. And I'm like, no, that's not the underlying reason. The underlying reason is you don't love yourself. I said the underlying reason is you have no confidence in yourself. The underlying reason is that depression sneaks up on you because you don't value who the fuck you are. Yep. The thing is that there are times to be motivated, and there's times to just know. And let me tell you something, buddy. Of all the people I've met on Twitter, you are the one I'm worried about the least. You lead with your heart. You have working knowledge of what you're doing, but more importantly, you give a fuck. And you can't teach that, right? because this world will rain down on you every reason why you shouldn't. And all it takes is one person to believe that you can, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It's been every veteran will go through it, especially at the special operations level. It happens, and I just try to make myself available to those guys that are about to hit it, about to uncover it. So
I have a buddy, ex-special forces. He was the third interview I've ever done. I think I've had him on like 3 times. He's a big real estate investor now, big time. And he says something to me that still gives me the chills to this day. And I make him do it every time he comes on the podcast. I won't get it perfectly, but you'll get the gist of it. His role in the special forces was to dig the graves. And I said, how do you get up every morning, leave your family, and, impact people and create this mastermind and this fund and all this shit? And he goes, well, I have to go live my life and live on purpose because all the people that I put in those graves couldn't. So I don't need motivation because I'm doing it for them.
yeah. I mean, I have a similar not that deep, but one of my best crew chiefs who I was very close with was killed right as I was getting out. And he had a young daughter and so much life ahead of him and fucking capabilities. And a lot of people have these stories, right? His name is Linney. And every time I think about whether I'm going to do something or not, whether I'm going to send a cold email or a cold call or go for a fucking weighted vest run with a stroller up a hill, I think about Vinny. And that's my motivation.
So great. So great. All right. Well, I gotta get done with this before I start crying. So, if people want to find out about you, they want to track you down. How would they do that?
Just go to my Twitter handle. I gotta get LinkedIn back up and running, but yeah, go to my Twitter handle. Pinpulled DRMF.
Yeah, he's a funny follow, guys. You'll learn a lot. A couple fun military stories that I love, and a lot of different stuff. Man, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
guys, if you got some knowledge from this, you enjoyed it, share with a friend, send it out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.